Let's start tonight, though, in South Africa. As I mentioned, it's entered its first recession in 8 years. Now, this comes after the economy contracted by 0.7% in the first quarter of 2017. That was caused by weak manufacturing and trade data. South Africa shrunk by 0.3% in the fourth quarter of 2016. It was the first time, though, that 2 consecutive quarters did show a contraction. That's the technical definition of a recession since the second quarter of 2009. Now, there have been individual quarters of negative growth in more recent years, but none following each other in rapid succession.
Recession as it is just tells us what we've recorded in the past 2 quarters. So it's something that's already affecting people. So South Africans have already been experiencing this. I think we saw it in the jobs numbers that came out, that unemployment had risen to over 27%, the highest in over a decade. So this is just something that confirms in terms of people's experiences. Domestic factors around political confidence, political stability. We've seen what has been going around in terms of our political structure. Certainly we know that worries a lot of people, both South Africans and international investors.
All right, then let's dig deeper into the data. There's quite a bit of it coming from South Africa today. Sumitra Naidoo joins us again from Johannesburg, South Africa, with more data on this story. Sumitra, a mild expansion of roughly 0.9% had been forecast for this quarter. Where did the economy diverge from the forecasts?
Well, Rama, there was an expectation that activity will improve. And of course, we're just not seeing that kind of activity in the economy. So we saw almost all of the sectors declining. We saw manufacturing taking another decline, trade in particular as well. And the only 2 sectors growing, agriculture and also the other industries that were growing, showed very, very small inclines rather. So really disappointing, and it's really about low business confidence, low business activity. There's not enough spend. Looking at expenditure as well, government expenditure was just 0.8%. It contracted rather 0.8%, and household expenditure declined 1.4%. So we're just not seeing that kind of activity happening. You know, there's a lot of disappointment in the economy with unemployment numbers shooting up to 27.7%. So there's a low jobs growth, and there's also a very subdued spending in the economy. People are holding back. We're seeing that in private consumption as well. So it's a lot of uncertainty, and people are holding back, and we're just not seeing that activity in this economy.
Indeed. Trade and manufacturing, trade down 6%, give or take, manufacturing by 3.7%. What exactly happened in those sectors to cause these contractions?
Well, again, it goes back to spending. We're not seeing the spending in the economy. So when you break down the trade numbers, we're seeing a decline in accommodation, in catering, in wholesale trade. So we saw a decline in tourism numbers, domestic tourism numbers, so people not moving around the country, and we're seeing a decline in spend there. We're seeing it in wholesale trade, so there's not enough spending between businesses, spending coming from government or to government institutions. So again, it's gone back to the spending side and production. So we're seeing a decline in investment, and investment particularly in the manufacturing sector. Because of this low consumer spend, the demand is being impacted as well, and we're not producing that kind of output that we were producing 2 or 3 quarters ago. So there's a definite decline here, and we're just seeing these translate into these poor numbers.
Indeed. The first quarter was also the first time since, I believe, the end of 2014, when the agricultural sector did actually show consistent positive growth. But how sustainable is this recovery, given the after effects of the drought in the country and, of course, the fall armyworm invasion?
There is a lot of concern about this industry, so it is showing an incline here. Agriculture lifting 22.2% in the first quarter of the year, and that's a big rebound from the declines that we saw in the previous quarters. So there are concerns about how sustainable this is going to be, because the farmers have incurred quite a bit of debt from to getting their operations back on track after the drought. So there is a concern. There is a surplus maize harvest that we're having at the moment. So it's looking up, and we are seeing a bit of job creation in the agricultural sector, but not as much as we had expected. So there are concerns about how sustainable this is going forward. And also in terms of climate conditions, there are concerns that we could get a dry season again. Weather forecasters are saying that this could actually impact going forward in the future, that by next year we'll have those dry conditions that we experienced in the last year or two. So there is a big concern about how sustainable this industry is going forward. However, government has pumped a lot of money into the sector to help it survive. So there are new measures in place. So they're looking at drought-resistant crops going forward. They're also looking at putting in new seeds resistant from disease. So they're looking at all of these measures to help us get through that stage. So they're hoping that agriculture will remain sustainable going forward. But there is a concern that the farmers still need to get over their heavy debt, and whether they will have excess capacity and excess investment to expand in this industry.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you for the update. That's Sumitra Naidu live, of course, in Johannesburg.